Welcome back, guys. First thing, I can't believe that we're already at episode 10. I really want to thank you guys who are subscribing and coming back and checking out the channel and commenting and stuff like that. It really does make this a lot of fun. Really appreciate that, and want to, thank you a lot for doing that. The second thing here is I warned you in the last update that this series on the Blazer brake lines and fuel lines is going to be kind of disjointed, and this is no exception. You're going to see me start about halfway down this list I wrote on the side window of the thing, just because I'm trying to make this slightly more coherent and hopefully helpful to other people that might have this truck and want to do this job. If you're here and you really, really just want the very short answer of, hey, my primary fuel supply and return lines are leaking, go to eBay or go to your local fuel tank shop and go buy plastic replacement lines. Take the broken steel ones off, cut them up, throw them away, and just snap the plastic ones in and put them on the truck. That's the short answer. That is not what I did. If you want to stick around and see the longer answer, the maybe more cost-effective answer, actually I don't think it is. I think by the time I'm done, I'll have $100 in this, and those are $100 too. So anyway, if you want to see what I did instead, keep watching, and thanks again for stopping by.
Next weekend, install OEM takeoff fuel lines. I got all of them, or about to get all of them, for $50. The 3/8 main supply line, the 5/8 return, and the 5/8 evap from the engine. These are from Oklahoma, so they're off a Southwestern truck. They should be good to go for me. I discovered I had a few options here. This had this option, which is probably the cheapest one and probably the most straightforward one. They just popped up on eBay, and I shot the guy an email and said, hey, you confident these are going to fit? And I've asked him, hey, are you going to be able to put these in box out, fold them in half? And we're waiting for a response. My feeling is, probably. So anyway, that's an option, is, get junkyard takeoffs and put them on. Another option is there's a company that makes nylon lines, and they claim, rubber or plastic fuel lines, and they claim that you can put them on without dropping the fuel tank. I'm not really too sure about that, at least not on jack stands. And I also did email them and asked them, hey, can you be a little more elaborate with your instructions? Because I don't see that happening, at least for me. Maybe not. You might be able to access them from like underneath the trunk area looking forward at the fuel tank. But that just sounds like nightmare fuel to me, and I just soon not mess with that sending unit at all. So that is an option that does exist in the world. And then finally, there's a company called Lines to Go that makes complete fuel line kits and brake line kits and stuff for this truck. They want like $180, and I assume plus shipping for the 3 fuel lines I'm buying off eBay for $50. They're stainless steel. And I shot them an email and said, hey, how much just for that 3/8 line? We're working on a budget here, and we'll see if they would want to sell that independently or not. But right now, getting the lines off eBay is my front runner. If that guy says, yeah, I can put them in the box and not fold them up, I'm just going to go in the house and buy them. That's all there is to that.
And I am absolutely wrong about all that. It turns out these are actually really easy to disconnect from the tank, particularly with the method that I will claim ownership to inventing, that I will try and link above. To disconnect these goofy GM style fuel tank clips. Anyway, so it's super easy to access them, to disconnect them. There's no risk of damaging the fuel sending unit because it's got plastic nipples. I thought maybe it was a steel unit. Nope, no risk there. You may or may not hear me say about 15 or 20 more times that those plastic lines would be the way to go. Depends what makes it into the final cuts of all this stuff. But yeah, I absolutely wish I would have gone that way. Would have just made my life a whole lot easier. So kind of disregard the trash talk on dropping the fuel tank to do plastic lines, because you really can just do it on jack stands, no sweat. I'm positive you could.
So we're going to start off with a little update here. Those are the eBay brake lines or fuel lines, and I'm already a little skeptical about what they actually might be versus what I thought I bought versus what I think is on the truck. So I still don't really know. This stuff's so impossible to see under the truck. But that's pretty much where the fuel filter is on the thing. And as you can see, this is supposed to include an evap line. I'm gonna guess it doesn't include the evap lines that go up, in the frame there. And I don't know where the other ones are supposed to even go. So the evap line isn't what I'm concerned about anyway. It's that big 3/8 supply line. To that end, heard back from all the people I put out feelers with. Lines to Go will not sell the 3/8 line independently of their kit. So if you just want that line, you got to buy the whole, with shipping, I'm sure, $200 kit. That's not for me. For somebody it might be. The guys who make the complete nylon replacement lines for like $100, they swear up and down that you can put them on with the fuel tank in the truck. And it's like, well, maybe on a lift, and if I wasn't supporting it by the axle and instead supported it under the frame, so that could drop. And what I will say is, if I were in the situation where I was either going to drop the tank or cut a hole in the floor, I would definitely go with the plastic lines for $100. I think that's probably as good as it gets. Well, holy cow, guys. These things are freaking nice. Looks like you're probably just going to get blown out if I try and do that. But yeah, like the factory E-coat, or like the plating or whatever, is still more or less on them. There's just some really light surface rust, like really light. Even up here in the rustified belt, these things should hold up for many years. So yeah, assuming they fit the truck, it's all good. We did splurge the budget, and I bought a new fuel filter. This one came with them. The guy never unscrewed it, and if I were selling these used, I wouldn't unscrew them either. Yeah, this is really nice. Just really light marks here and there. There are a couple of small places on them that looks like they may have been, like I think right there is probably a good example where maybe it was kinked ever so slightly, maybe during removal, or maybe they're manufactured that way. But either way, I think this is going to be just fine. This vent tube is the one that's got me, I won't say nervous, but concerned, because I'm fully willing to admit that I just don't understand how these tubes all run yet. But I haven't seen anything under the truck with rubber soft lines on it. And this is rubber soft line at both ends. So I'm sure as I rip the old one out, I'll get more of a feel for that. But the eBay seller swore up and down that these should fit this truck. This is the one I'm the least worried about, like I said, because I can run these sizes no problem. In fact, this is quarter, and that'll be real easy if I need to. This big 3/8 one is the one that had me worried, because I don't have a way to replicate the no, not this end, the other end. I don't have a way to replicate this GM style, quick connect flare end. This is packed in tape. The guy taped off all the ends of them before he shipped them, which is cool. But yeah, I don't have a way to replicate that. These bends are getting pretty tight, probably even for copper nickel line. And copper nickel line in 3/8 is pretty freaking expensive too. So yeah, if these fit the truck, I'm really happy. These are in nice shape. So I guess the Max's tip for the day is, try and buy nice ones on eBay from out west. We'll see how it goes. The big concern now is, will they actually fit? But like I said, the eBay seller was really cool. Before I bought them, I said, hey, these don't fit, you'll take them back, right? And he's like, yep, no problems. I part out Blazers all the time. I'm real familiar with them. They should go right on your truck. I'm like, okay, cool, dude. So we'll see. In fact, the guy was cool enough that if I can't figure this out, this one out on my own, I may just shoot him an email and say, hey, what's the deal, man? I don't understand what's going on. But anyway, I think we'll be okay. I think once I start taking the old rusty ones off, all will become clear. But this is the guy that we were the most worried about. And It looks to be the right length, the right general shape, and it looks like it's a nice shape, so we should be good to go. And when we get them all in the truck and this is all done, I'm going to go over this stuff with spray grease, like can of white lithium grease, and just grease the snot out of all of it. So, not just for my ownership of it, but probably the expected rest of the life of the vehicle, which, by the way, those two things are probably the same. A scrapyard will probably become the next owner of this truck when I'm done. But anyway, yeah, shouldn't be any problem at all. Really happy with these. We'll see how they go on the truck. Unbelievable. I just broke that loose with a wrench, and it's freaking spinning right off there. I don't think I have ever got one of these just to turn like that in my life. Out west is a good place to be. Alright guys, now, before you criticize, remember, the outset of this project I said I was willing to cut some corners. And we pretty literally did. This isn't something I would do to anything I really cared about, but $400 rusty Blazer, yeah, we'll go ahead and take some vice grips and just chunk that up. By the way, this is the third light bulb of the week. Anyway, and what I discovered doing that, I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, we'll try and get you in there, is that main, yeah, I think maybe barely you can see, the main 3/8 fuel line connects to a soft line, a soft nylon line right up in there. Yeah. So what I'm hoping to be able to do is if I pull these other steel lines out of the way, because the big line, of course, is the furthest one in, that I should be able to pull that 3/8 line out toward us over the frame rail and out of the way and disconnect it from that nylon line and basically do the same thing at the front. Just disconnect the line at the fuel filter and take the fuel filter off and pull that line completely out and then put the new one in.
And that's what happened. I ended up just straight up cutting the line off the fuel filter after I spent forever getting it unclipped. Those are the cable cutters I used to do it. And this is the absolute mess of the connector. Yeah, eventually we'll get there. Yeah, there's where the connection for it is on the rest of the truck. That is the rusty disaster of the fuel return line. You can see was totally gross. It was a nightmare to get it disconnected. And this is going to be what the other side of it looks like. It's just completely full of rust and garbage. Thankfully, I don't think it's been damaged or anything, but just a complete disaster to get that taken apart. And then just some general footage here of the other soft lines where they are on the truck, kind of how they connect and stuff like that, just so you can get an idea what's going on. And this is the absolute disaster of all the tools it took for me to get all that stuff disconnected. I was under this thing for like 2 hours. Just a complete mess. And that is when I decided to try and invent the method. Before we go any further, it's probably best if I take a second to explain what took me legitimately like 2 or 3 days crawling around under this thing to figure out, and like 6 hours of video trying to hash my way through it to explain to you guys. So what I've done here is I've taken a still frame of video that I captured with the action cam, the NoPro, which I've learned through this process is one of the most powerful tools that a modern mechanic can have in his toolbox. The picture you're seeing here, or the still frame of video, was taken between the frame rail and the body, and all that would fit in there is my NoPro, which is basically a GoPro. It's basically the same size, so it's maybe 1.25 inches tall. The camera would fit in there without its case, and that's it. There's no way I could get my head in there. And off to the left, you'll see the gas tanks right there. So there's just no hope of seeing anything without something like an action cam or a bunch of mirrors or something like that. So anyway, I'm rambling. So what we have here from bottom to top is the red arrow is where the rear brake line would clip in. And let me back up for a second. We're looking at this from the firewall back. So this picture is taken looking toward the back of the truck, toward the rear bumper. So this is the driver's side frame rail looking back. So anyway, you see the red arrows, the rear brake line. I've already got it removed in this picture. The next one up to that is a vent line from the engine to the canister. That's the blue arrow. So that one runs pretty much the full length of the truck. That one's the one that I think is actually, I took a paint marker and made yellow, I think, back toward where I cut it off. Sorry, the colors don't correspond. The next one up, the green arrow, is the fuel return line, and that connects right by the fuel supply line, so right by the fuel filter under the truck, and it runs back to a nylon fitting or a nylon hose more or less at the tank. The next one up, the purple arrow or mauve arrow maybe, is the fuel supply line. That's that big 3/8 line. Really self-explanatory there. You'll see exactly where that clips in because I show it pretty well a little later on, I think probably in the next episode. And then the yellow arrow is a vent line from the engine, which this connects, and so does the one that I've got labeled with the blue arrow. So the blue and yellow arrows both connect to soft lines up by the transmission. So there's 3 soft lines right there: fuel supply, fuel return, and I guess maybe there's 4. There's 2 vents. And anyway, I'm not worried about disconnecting those. I think they've got those weird connectors on both ends. But anyhow, the yellow arrow is the engine to fuel tank valve. There's like this plastic valve or solenoid or something that's mounted right back around the fuel tank that's kind of hard to get to. And that's the guy that's got the soft rubber hose ends on it. So anyway, if you are working on your Blazer and you can only feel up on top of the frame to feel where the lines are and stuff like that, and you pretty much have to do this whole job more or less by feel, that's what all the lines running down the frame are. There are 5 of them, and that's where they go, and those are, as far as I understand it, which I admit is somewhat poor, the jobs they do. So they say picture's worth 1,000 words. I probably just added another 10,000 needless words to the explanation, but that's what they do. Okay, so I'm starting to figure out some of the mysteries here. You can, in fact, get to the top of the fuel tank sending unit with the tank up. I don't know if I can do it very effectively right now, especially with the light up there and everything. But yeah, take my word for it. You can reach up in there. I'm pretty confident you're never going to get those terrible GM style fuel clips off of that sending unit. At least I'm confident I wouldn't. Now that I'm about 2/3 of the way through this project, I'm pretty well convinced the right thing to do is just drop the tank and order nylon lines and be done with this. But anyway, as far as mysteries, that one evap line that I didn't know what it was is that guy way back in there, and it connects to some sort of weird plastic fitting thing down inside that I assume is some kind of rollover valve or check valve or something. And then it connects to this line that's left on the frame rail, this back one that runs all the way back to the charcoal canister. The line that I thought I was getting, or would have assumed the seller would have included since it was the fuel lines from the motor, is this one. This one, that's why I was asking the guy, I'm like, hey, are you sure you can put all the stuff in the box and not bend it? And he's, oh yeah. This runs basically the full length of the truck. It runs all the way to, pretty much like right here. That's where it goes into the charcoal canister, maybe even further back. And then it dumps out right by the fuel filter up front. So, yeah, I kind of accidentally ended up cutting that line off. And now it's looking like I'm going to be replacing it, or at least patching it in and running a new one. But I think for the moment, we're probably just going to cap it off on both ends and call it good. The computer will probably throw an evap light, but whatever. But anyway, I'm also seeing that it's going to be pretty difficult to get all the new pre-made hard lines put back in the frame, get them around the body mounts and everything. Again, I'm starting to see why guys say, oh yeah, time to jack the body up. Really hoping that we don't have to do that, because that's a lot of work, and just for flat out, I'm not going to do that right now. I don't have time. This thing will just get pushed outside. But anyway, a couple mysteries solved. There's absolutely no slack in the nylon hose connections that were right there.
I don't think you could actually drop the tank to the ground. They're too short. You'd have to drop the tank a few inches and then get in there and mess with them to disconnect them, and then you could drop it all the way to the ground. So what I've done right now is I've cut these lines off so I can get these terrible GM style fuel clips out, and I'll probably have to do that from under the truck or mess with them or whatever, so that I can pull what was left of the original lines out of those things, put the new hard lines in, and hopefully just reach up in and snap these back on. And that's a lot of hopeful, isn't it? Oh man, nightmare project. Anyway, that's where we stand. I've basically got both ends of the truck looking like this. Oh, that's the other weird thing too, is the other end of this evap line that I already cut off doesn't have the normal kind of GM oddball clip. It's got something else going on, so I'm not even sure how you go about disconnecting it at all. So I'll show you guys that in a little while. But right now, back to it. I'm going to try and snake the new lines in, and I'm going to guess that's not going to go super well. Well, as is often the case, when you try and save dollars, you end up paying with sweat. And I think that's the case here. What I've got going on is this line is essentially impossible to put in the truck with the body mounts on. If I try and take those body mounts off, it's never gonna go back together. They're way too rusty. So what I did, and I may edit together something a little better, is I know Lines to Go sells theirs in 2 pieces, and it looks like they've got a little flex bit in there, and then that looks like another push to connect them. So that would certainly make things better. So what I'm going to do is cut mine in the same location, or attempt to, and I'm trying to figure that out, where the right spot is, and I think it's going to be pretty much right there, you know, just after that little kink bend. Cut this guy, double flare both ends, take about 1 inch out of it for a union, so I can get it on the truck. It really sucks that I bought you know, complete new nice line and then have to cut it in half and put a union in it. But the other thing that really sucks is if I don't get the splice location correct, there might be right on top of a clipping point where this is supposed to snap into the frame, and it might not want to snap in. And that would just be really annoying. So, so I'm going to have to eyeball this a little bit more, and let's see what happens from there. And cut this guy and flare it and off to the races. This is it's not looking good. Like I said earlier, if I had this to do all over again, I'd just drop the tank and get those nylon lines on eBay for $100 and call it good.
In the next episode, I'm going to show you guys how I determined how much to cut out of each line to make up for the thickness of the unions and the fittings and all that stuff, and where I decided to cut them and how I went about it and everything. And we might get into some of how I put them back on the truck, or what I went through there. I'm trying to keep these a little more concise and a little more focused. So I don't know if we're going to be at 1 or 2 more episodes on this topic, or expressly this topic anyway. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you again for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Come on back. Have a good one, guys. Get out in the shop. Do something. Let me know what you're doing in the shop. See ya.